Okay, so now we're ready to start creating the user interface for our piano. Now in this case, we'll just be creating the piano keys. We'll have 8 white keys and 5 black keys, and we'll be creating all of these objects in LiveCode, so we don't need any images. Okay, so here we are in LiveCode, and we're going to use buttons to create all our keys so that the user can click on them. So make sure that you're in edit mode, and we're going to start by dragging out a rectangular button, which is this one here, the rectangle button, and just dropping it onto our stack. Now we're going to set some properties of our button to change how it looks. So make sure you've got your button selected, go to the object menu and open up the object inspector. Now we want each of our keys to have a sensible name, and the key name is going to tell us which note should be played by this key. So this is going to be our C key, so change the name of the button to C. Now we don't want the name to be shown on the button, so at the moment it's C, but we'll turn off show name. Now we want the button to be two-dimensional and nice and sort of like a flat colour. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the icons and borders. We're going to turn off 3D, so we don't have that 3D effect anymore. We've got a nice flat colour. We still want it to have a border, so we'll leave that on. We're going to turn off the highlight border because we don't want the border to be to change colour when we click on it. And 2 is a bit wide, so we're going to set the border size down to 1. So next we're going to set the colour of the button. So we're going to go in the property inspector, we're going to switch to colours and patterns, and we're going to set the fill colour. Earlier we used the pattern, but this time we just want to set a flat background colour. So we use the colour, and in here we can choose white. Okay, now we want to set the size of the button. Now it'll be the same height as the stack, and we'll have 8 of them. So you can either work out the width of the buttons, or you can just do it by eye. So if you want to do it by eye, just drag it up to the top of the stack, make it the same height as the stack, and make it wide enough that you'll be able to fit 8 of them next to each other. Now the alternative, if you want to work it out, is to go to the object menu, look at the stack inspector, go to size and position, take a note of how wide and how tall your stack is, and then you can work out how wide each of your buttons should be, because it should be 500 divided by 8, or whatever the width of your stack is divided by 8. So I worked that out earlier, and I want mine to be 62 wide. So I did that pretty well by eye, 64. I'll set that to 62. I want it to be the same height as the stack, 350, and I want the left to be 0 and the top to be 0. Now in LiveCode, 0, 0 is up here, and larger x coordinates go to the right and larger y coordinates go down. So 0, 0 is up here, this would be 50, 50, this would be 100, 100. So the 0, 0, the origin, is in the top left rather than the top right, which it would normally be on a graph or something like that. Okay, so the 2 ways to do it, either just by eye or by working it out mathematically based on the size of your stack. Okay, so we've set up our first white key, but we need 7 more of them. And we could drag out a button, set all the properties, everything every time, but since they're all going to look pretty much the same, we're just going to copy and paste. Let's go to the edit menu. Make sure that you've got your button selected, of course. Go to the edit menu, choose copy, edit, and paste, and it'll appear directly above the first one, so you can use the arrow keys or the mouse to move it into place. You can also use the keyboard shortcuts if you're happy with those, and just lay them all out until you've got all the white keys. You should have 8 of them. Okay, so there's my stack, and you can see it's a little bit wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the object menu, open up the stack inspector. I'm going to allow resizing again, and I'm just going to drag it a little narrower, and then I'm going to switch resizable back on again. So now I've got 8 keys nicely laid out across my stack, and I have changed the size of the stack so that the keys fit, and I've just turned off resizable again. Okay, so next what we want to do is we want to set the name of all of our keys. So we set the name of our first key. Let's make sure we're in edit mode. Open up the object inspector. It's called C, but all the other ones are called C as well. So we want to change the name of each of these to represent the notes that they will represent. So this will be C, D, E, F, G. So select the second one, change the name to D, then the third one be E, then we've got F, G, A, B, and because we've got a full octave, we've got another C, but to just differentiate them, we'll call this C2 because we want them to be different names. So we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C2. So those are the names of all our white keys. Now we want to create the black keys. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by copying and pasting one of our white buttons. So I'm just going to select the first one, copy and paste it, and I'm going to move it so that it's halfway between these keys. And I'm going to just drag it to make it a little bit narrower and a little bit shorter, and move it in between my two keys. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the colors and patterns. Now I've still got my property inspector open, but if you've closed it and you need to reopen it, just remember, select your object, go to the object menu and open up the object inspector. Now these are the black keys, so we just need to change the fill color. Instead of being white, we want to change it to black. And now we've got a nice opaque black key. And we'll just copy and paste to create the other ones. Okay, so you should end up with a keyboard that looks a bit like this. And the last thing we need to do is we need to change the names of our black keys so that they also represent, so that the names represent the notes that these will play. So select your first black key and change the name of that one to C sharp. The second one will be D sharp. There isn't an E sharp, so the next black key is F sharp, then G sharp, and then A sharp. And you'll notice if we have a quick look in our piano folder, in our resources at our sounds, that these have the sound files have the same name as the names of the keys. That's very important. So make sure you name these exactly as described in the slides. Now if we switch to run mode, we can try clicking on our keys, and you'll see that it shows us that they're being clicked on, but nothing else happens at the moment. So the changing the colour when it's clicked is just an automatic thing that LiveCode does. We'll need to add code to get the sounds to actually play. Okay, so congratulations, you've now finished setting up the UI of your piano signboard. Now you can switch into run mode in the tools palette and try clicking on the buttons. And in the next step, again, we'll be adding some code so that your app actually does something when the user clicks on the keys. If you're working in a pair, switch over now before the next step, and don't forget to save your work.